Today we're going to dive into decentralized identities and all that comes with it.
Blockchain, yes, it's transparent. Yes, that's fantastic for certain use cases, but you shouldn't have to reveal your entire history of blockchain activity when you just want to collect an airdrop. The big missing piece right now in Web3 is identity. It's a topic that everyone finds important, but no one's really interested in it unless they're working in it.
All right, thank you for tuning into the TEACHMEDEFI podcast. Another interview episode. Today we're going to dive into decentralized identities and all that comes with it. Big topic in the Web3 world. And I'm excited to say we got Patrick from Litentry here. Hi, good to meet you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you for having us. I'm really excited to dive deep.
Yeah, same here. I think I'll just give a short quote that I have here. I'm not sure if it's exactly from the website, but I think it kind of encapsulates what you guys are doing, and maybe you can kind of expand on it. So Litentry aims to shift the control of data from service providers to users, advocating for a user-centric internet where profits generated from user data should go back to the user. Is that kind of accurate, and can you explain the core philosophy behind this more?
Yeah, so we're definitely working into building that future. The core philosophy really comes down to the principle of self-sovereign identity. And for those people that don't know, self-sovereign identity is the concept that people are able to control and own truly the data that they have, and with that comes certain consequences. That data is portable, that it's not siloed. For example, in the Facebook or Meta ecosystem, that you're able to take that wherever you want to go. Social media accounts, same thing. There's no reason why you should lose your followers when you're moving to TikTok from Instagram or from Twitter. All of those things should be modular, kind of like a Lego vision to digital identity. And what we believe and what we're trying to build through the Identity Hub is that the future is predicated on the fact that users are able to control their data. They decide how to share that data with service providers, with companies, with projects. And in return, because those projects and service providers want to have that data, they will reward users based on certain characteristics that they're looking for the user. So now you start to create a new dynamic between the user and the company, and it's less this top-down approach, but more of a negotiation of, what is the true value of identity data? Who really owns that? And we're hoping that it unlocks a lot more social innovation, socioeconomic innovations as well.
Okay, that's exciting. So can you give some examples, what that would look like, for example, in terms of on the internet or real-world applications, or perhaps even like in the crypto ecosystem? What could that look like when the user owns the data and can make use of it?
Yeah, so I guess starting from the crypto ecosystem and particularly DeFi, the biggest use case that we see is under collateralized loans. So these are loans based on things like reputation, trustworthiness, that in crypto's current moment, there's no real way of quantifying that and being able to verify that. And so what we're hoping is through Litentry, through the Identity Hub, you start to create these reputation economies that allow some of the innovations in finance that you have in TradFi to be applicable to crypto, and to allow people to actually get loans that, give them a higher purchasing power rather than having to put up, 80% collateral and getting maybe a loan that's for 20% more than that. For the real life, it looks a little bit different depending on how the players of identity data adopt this self-sovereign approach. And And when I mean players, it's talking about governments, corporations. So if the government decides, we agree with the self-sovereign identity idea, we want to digitize passports, ID cards, things like this, then you start to unlock a whole new world where you can, instead of sharing all your data when you go to buy, for example, alcohol at a store, or you're trying to get into the club or whatever the case may be, instead of sharing your address, your heights, your eye color, all of these things, you're able to create a verifiable credential stating that you were over the age of 18 with your photo, for example, and then that gives you that same access without revealing more data than necessary. So that, for us, we're kind of sticking more to the crypto side of things, because as many of us who are watching the space know, governments are tripping over themselves with how to deal with crypto and the innovations that are flowing from it. And so we kind of want to wait until the dust settles to work on that Web2 real life use cases and focusing more on the crypto native use cases.
Yeah, we had heard similar things. We had Ingo Rübe once on the show from Kilt. They're also working on decentralized identities and things like that. And apparently they were quite engaged with the German government on a range of things. And it was really hard to really get meaningful progress going there. So I think that validates your point as well. And in terms of DeFi, then, if we stick to that, you spoke to under collateralized loans. For people who don't know why that is relevant or what that is about, currently, if you want to get a loan on these decentralized finance applications, you have to put up collateral that is higher in value than the loan that you want to get. So you put up, for example, $1,000 of ETH and you get a loan of 800 USDC or something like that, because there's no credit score or anything like that, no way to enforce or understand the history of this person. Can they be trusted to pay this back? And that sort of is missing. So you can't really do under collateralized loans. So if we speak about under collateralized loans more, what would that look like then? What would sort of the application, if I want to get a loan and it should be under collateralized, and I have a Litentry identity, just run me through that. What would that process look like?
Yeah, so I think one thing that it was really important for us from the onset was not to have us be a choke point for digital identity. We really wanted to be that tool that facilitates these interactions. And so while we do have, for example, in the Identity Hub is what we call a profile, and we can go into that a little bit later on in the show. Every profile is going to be specific to a particular project. And so what that means is that a project, for example, some DeFi protocol can define what characteristics are important for them to determine trustworthiness. Is it that they've paid back a loan on another decentralized finance protocol, and then that user who has demonstrated essentially good lending and loaning behavior can create a verifiable credential of those on-chain activities and then share that with whatever project that they want to kind of validate the fact that, yes, I've done this and I have proof that I've done this. And then the project in return can say, great, we saw that you've paid back a loan of 10K and we've seen that you've done this multiple times on different protocols. So we can assign a score to you based on whatever score logic that they're defining. And the user can see, before even sharing their data, okay, is what they're providing me worth the data that I'm going to be sharing with them? Is it worth it for me to show that I'm a good lender or that I'm a good loaner? Is it worth it for me to share how much that I have over 10K in assets? So that now there's this kind of back and forth, and you can see, users really seeing concretely what their data is going to be worth. And projects now have to figure out, oh, how do I incentivize users to share their information with me? What am I giving them in return? And how is that factoring into the user's kind of costs benefit analysis of this interaction?
Okay, right. And in terms of this integration, is that blockchain agnostic, or is it, because I know you guys are on Polkadot, right? And on Kusama. So would that apply to blockchain projects who build on Polkadot that can use you and integrate you as a reputation mechanism, or could also projects on Ethereum or other blockchains do that?
Yeah, so that was also something that we want to make clear from the beginning, is that even if we started on Polkadot, we were fully planning to be multi-chain, chain agnostic, and as a testament to that, actually, we launched our Ethereum compatibility this past summer, and so now users are able to log in with their Ethereum-based wallets, things like MetaMask, Trust wallets, and be able to create their aggregated identity on the Identity Hub using those wallets as their main wallets. And I think maybe just to illustrate this, I can share a screen capture of what a profile would look like.
Yeah, that would be great.
Cool. And what you'll see here is essentially what a user would see on the Identity Hub once they've logged in. So what you can see here is, for example, this is the 1Block Plus trending score. So this is a profile that 1Block, a project, an educational project, would have created. They have different levels of progress that a user can have, and for that they can get points. And so this is just a mock profile. But what we've seen from the conversations that we've had with other projects is that it's things like rewarding users with a higher staking rate, or allowing them to have boosted rewards for a certain period of time. It's things like being able to attend events for free because of their contributions to the community. And they're based on things like a transaction count, or your membership in a Discord group of some kind. And so here you're able to kind of see in a more transparent way how your score is being calculated, what you can do to increase it. And you can see very clearly when this score is valid for. So projects are able to define from what time to what time that they're going to have the score active. It doesn't have to be a month. It can be the whole year. It can be something that's consistently ongoing. It can be a time-limited thing. So it's similar to Quest platforms like Galaxy or Airlift, but it goes a step further in that you kind of avoid having that low-quality airdrop hunter traffic, because you're forcing people, based on the characteristics that you define, to continually contribute to your community so that they can go up and score. And the higher your score, that means the more committed you are. And then that's an incentive for a project to reward you, because as we know in Web3, everyone's looking for valuable users, those degens that are going to go full ape into a project and, you know, really participate in their governance and their Discord and send messages and all of these things. And with those Quest platforms, you don't really get that at the moment.
Right. Interesting. So how these credentials that you collect here, then the transaction count and all that, does that aggregate then into the wallet of the user, into the Litentry wallet as digital tokens, or how is that owned then by the user, these credentials, so to say?
Yeah, so these credentials are verifiable credentials. So the user can generate those through the Identity Hub, which then verifies the statement that they're trying to prove by indexing whatever blockchain that statement would presumably belong to. So if this is an Ethereum transaction count, and the credential that they're trying to claim says that they've had over 1,000 transactions on Ethereum, then the user would go, they would click that, and then the Identity Hub would go check the blockchain for the transactions that that user has made. And here you can see the type of accounts that you can connect to the Identity Hub for this mockup. So you have a user that has their Polkadot wallet connected, they have their Twitter, and some Litentry accounts. In the new version of the Identity Hub, you can have your Ethereum accounts on there, so you can also attach almost as many wallets as you have. And the idea is that you have this one main account, and while none of these accounts are available for Litentry to see, you are able to see what your Web3 kind of footprint looks like. And you're able to claim credentials based on any of those accounts to increase your score on a particular profile that a project might have. So it's really up to the user whether they want to have, a particular profile that they're kind of working towards to level up. It's up to them whether they want to claim a certain credential to meet a certain level on a project's score. And then they can also see what credentials they have aggregated across their different wallet identities.
Cool. So it goes further. Decentralized identity system goes further than, for example, Ethereum name system, ENS, which is only basically only makes your wallet address human readable, like your name, and then you can send money there. But here you can aggregate all these different credentials sort of in one identity that you own. Is that also a description of it?
Yeah, exactly. So what we wanted to move away from is this idea that, blockchain, yes, it's transparent. Yes, that's fantastic for certain use cases, but you shouldn't have to reveal your entire history of blockchain activity when you just want to collect an airdrop or you want to sign in and vote for a motion on somebody's governance platform. Because that's essentially what your wallet does, right? You have your address, and whoever has your address can see every transaction you've done, whatever assets have flown in, flown out of your account. And with the Identity Hub, we're kind of moving away from that paradigm and pushing forward this idea of making your identity tangible without being seen, right? And that's where the tagline of Litentry comes from, because essentially what the best practice would be when using the Identity Hubs to create a brand new wallet on MetaMask or Polkadot or whatever, and make that your main account. That way it's a fresh wallet. There's nothing on there. Even if someone has a transaction, they can't see, or the address, they can't see what's going on with it. And then link your actual wallets that you use on your day-to-day within the Identity Hub, and none of those relationships will be exposed because they're all hidden within the trusted execution enclave. And essentially what that does is obfuscate the relationships, the assets, and all of those things that you have within your wallets that you want to protect, but still allows you to get the benefits of, in a way, connecting your wallets to a project or a product in Web3.
So, for example, I don't have to say, okay, look, here's my wallet address, here's all the things I've done, and the project might be only interested in a small segment of this data. Instead of showing them everything, I go like, okay, look, here's my Litentry-based identity, which shows I've done 70 transaction plus, which was what you're interested in, which shows I've interacted with your protocol that often, things like that, for example?
Yeah, so with, back to the profiles, you essentially choose, by hitting claim, you're sharing the credentials that you've generated using the Identity Hub. And if unless it says that you're sharing your wallet address, like your main wallet address, the project doesn't even have that information. So projects now have to be very conscientious of the information that they're asking for, so that users are actually fully informed of the consequences of hitting that claim button. And so where it's kind of going even a step further than, GDPR with the cookies, because I think at this point everyone just hits accept all or reject all and just moves on with their day.
Yeah.
Whereas this is kind of a step further in the sense that it's not going to pop up every single time and ruin your experience, but you're able to choose to enhance your experience by sharing your information with a particular project that you're actually interested in, as opposed to every single website that you visit or every single app that you open.
Okay. And what about like things like, for example, KYC or something, or your ID? If you wanted to verify that and hold that data, how would that work? Because I just remember from Kills there was like attestation attesters. So you would KYC sort of with them, and there could be multiple, and you choose which one you want, and they would then issue like a kind of like a certificate on chain to your wallet, which showed that you were KYC'd or whatever. Are these also things that you can do here, or are you more looking at these on-chain reputation things?
Yeah, so we're at the moment we're kind of staying away from the KYC realm. The reason being is because we don't think that at this point in time there's that big of an appetite in the Web3 space, just in general. Yes, there are some use cases for example, when you're using a centralized exchange, and there are service providers for that. But I think for us, what's important is until governments are fully on board with a self-sovereign identity framework in mind, KYC and making that into a verifiable credential, it's more gimmicky than anything, because it doesn't really help to protect the user data. Because if that entity, that a tester or whatever you call them, gets hacked and they lose all that information, then inevitably the user data is also lost in that case. And so we really want to focus on the use cases where we can say, yes, your data is fully protected. The point of failure is going to be the user itself. They decide to publish their shielding key online, then that's their prerogative. There's nothing we can do about that. But for what's in Litentry's control, we want to ensure that user data and user privacy is held to the highest standard, and we're working with projects that also have that philosophy in Web3.
Right. And in terms of, let's say my my wallet where I have this decentralized identity and the credentials in there, let's say I lose access, or maybe it's hacked. If it would be hacked, the hacker would sort of falsely have my identity. So it could be like, this is me. I've done these transactions. I have these credentials or whatever. Is there anything already, like a mechanism to make this more secure, or have something so that this cannot be enforced?
Yeah. So all the data that the Identity Hub generates is held locally within the user's device. So whether that's their computer, their phone, their browser, whatever. So it never leaves their device, kind of like essentially Face ID with the passwords, right? If you lose access to your iCloud accounts, not even Apple itself can access the passwords and the biometric data that you've given your device, unless the person grabs hold of your device and breaks it down. And, there are points of failure. We're not going to say that it's 100%. But essentially the way that we've approached this, hopefully very improbable scenario, is that all your data is held locally on your device. The nothing is held by Litentry. So even if we get hacked, there's no data that we can lose because we don't hold any. And for the user itself, if their wallet gets hacked, the hacker would need to have the shielding key or the password to their identity hub in order to access that identity data. So it's not enough just to have access to the wallet itself.
Okay. All right. And you showed us a bit of the identity hub. What can you use currently Litentry identities for at the moment? Do you already have some integrations you want to talk about? And are there any like future plans for partnerships and integrations that you can share?
Yeah, so we are in talks with a couple of projects to onboard them as the kind of inaugural profiles that we have. So those will come out in the next couple of months. I don't want to commit to a timeline because, as we know, as Web3 goes, you say one
tricky
thing and but yeah, what I can say without naming names right away is that we'll be working with a couple of DeFi protocols to enable essentially better staking rewards, improved user experiences, whether that's, having a direct line to the team, aside from their, chaos of Telegram and Discord, having something more streamlined, more, say, premium in a sense. And we are actively talking with other projects in both the Polkadot ecosystem and the Ethereum ecosystem to start building those use cases so that users have a reason and a way to manage their digital identities.
Right. And do you see this picking up? Is there interest for integrating these identity solutions? Where do you see the most promise? Is it DeFi? How is it looking, sort of?
Yeah, I think our two initial niches will definitely be DeFi and gaming, because there are, in both these communities, that understand the value of reputation, that understand the value of having verifiable credentials to prove certain aspects of yourself without revealing your full self. And I think for us, the focus is really going to be developing those use cases so that in the future we have proof of these things working. And furthermore, for a lot of projects, the issue that they're facing is a lot of low value or low quality users that swarm your community when you announce that you're having an airdrop. All of a sudden you have all this traffic, your website's crashing, it's pandemonium, but your marketing team's like, great, we did something right for once. But then, a couple of weeks later, all of a sudden it's crickets. Everybody's gone. Maybe you have 30,000 users in your Discord, but you have maybe 300, 400 that are actually communicating on a semi-regular basis. And so kind of the first step to our roadmap is enabling projects to, one, figure out who is really in their community, what contributions they're actually making, and enable projects to incentivize this positive or community building behavior. And then at a later stage, once we've hit kind of a critical mass of profiles within our identity hub, then we want to facilitate the cross-pollination of these high-quality users to other projects. And with that, we're hoping to create a kind of positive feedback loop of where if you have a dedicated user in one ecosystem, then it stands to reason that user might be dedicated in another ecosystem, provided that there are benefits to being that dedicated. And so we want to create and level up user communities kind of across the Web3 system. And that's why we're kind of reaching out to the DeFi and the gaming, because that's the part of the Web3 world that is the most developed, at least in our opinion.
That's super interesting. Let's talk about that more in terms of cross-pollination and perhaps gaming, because you mentioned gaming. What could that look like? For example, could you be seeing, okay, this guy is a gamer in game XYZ, he's got this score there, and he's been playing this other game, so he's kind of like an actual gamer and not like a guy who just wants to have this short-term project, airdrop farming or whatever, So is that the way you would look at it? What are the things how Litentry and decentralized identities could be used in gaming that are interesting?
Yeah, so I think for us, one of the use cases that we're thinking about is exactly that, in the sense that, you have certain characteristics that are going to be important to projects regardless. Do they have verifiable on-chain activity that you can create a verifiable credential out of? Things like logging into a Web3 game, things like logging into a DeFi protocol, making a transaction, and then you're able to create verifiable credentials that demonstrate that fact. And to the user, you can show them, hey, if you go to this profile, you'll already be at level 2 or level B or whatever the case may be, and you'll get these benefits. And so the user can simply go and see, okay, I'm already doing my life as I would be, but now I can get even more benefits, and they're exposed to projects that maybe they never would have come across had they not been already incentivized for the behavior that they're already displaying. And if they're kind of a less active user, they can see, oh, I'm only a little bit away from getting this particular benefit from this company, and I've never heard of this company, but they're already giving me, 5% increased staking on top of what they have. So then you start to see users that maybe would have kept that low level of activity or that low level of transactions start to think about, okay, what can I do to start getting more involved so I can hit that next level? And you start to gamify community participation, and it has, we believe, potential positive repercussions for things like governance, DAOs, and voting down the road.
That's interesting. So you could kind of have like a cross-compatibility of almost like loyalty points or something, if you think of miles in terms of flying. So you could, it would kind of like aggregate to you all these things you're doing, your activity, the data you generate would keep kind of aggregating, the value would aggregate to your wallet, to your decentralized identity. That's an interesting area, especially because, in crypto, you have that problem in terms of who's really a person, which is a wallet that is the 110th wallet by the same person, Sybil resistance and all these things. Another topic is simply how many users of blockchains are there really? Because sometimes the proxy that's used for that is just like number of active wallets, but people who are more involved already know these are less real people because one person tends to use or have many wallets, so they can be bots. So do you think this is an area that will become increasingly important where decentralized identity tries to solve it?
Definitely. I think the big missing piece right now in Web3 is identity. I think it's a topic that everyone in this case finds important, but no one's really interested in it unless they're working in it. And I think that's really the struggle, because I think there is a fundamental agreement that identity is the key to unlocking a Web3 that's more vibrant, more rich, and hopefully less full of bots. But at the same time, because the problem is so big, people are more so thinking, okay, let me just go for the mass production, mass outreach, and then filter out after the fact. Whereas we kind of want to take the approach of like, you can do both. You can have that mass outreach, but you can also focus that outreach onto real people and be able to quantify what your marketing team is actually doing, what your outreach team is actually doing, because companies are spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, euros, in trying to acquire these new crypto users. But if your only proxy for that is wallet addresses, and I myself have, I think at this point I've probably created over 10 wallets, if not more. And I've connected those wallets to different projects. That doesn't mean that they've gained me as a user. Maybe I went in, I checked it out, I didn't understand, I dropped off, as many users do. I think I read a stat it's over 80-90% of new crypto users that drop out after their first kind of wallet interaction. And so now
not a great statistic.
It really isn't.
Yeah.
But if you're able to have a mechanism that allows users, particularly the more advanced ones with multiple wallets, to be able to interact with your protocol without sharing all of their assets, which is the case with whales and people who have higher asset values, then you start to be able to connect to those users that you really want, that are the ones that are going to be those high volume transactions or those people that are going to be involved in your governance. And on the flip side, you can also start to create an onboarding mechanism for users that are brand new to the ecosystem that maybe only have one wallet, but you're able to incentivize them to continue down that path, to give them the ability to become those power users, or at least a moderate every now and then type user.
Yeah. Because if I'm just one person, right, and I actually like to use this protocol, this application, whatever, and I'm a real user, but then they, let's say, do an airdrop to reward early users, but then at the same time as I was just silly old me, just that one person doing these, using that app, at the same time there's other people who are using hundreds of bots or whatever, and maybe they don't get filtered out in that airdrop criteria. So then obviously this one person who's malicious and not really brings sort of long-term value to this application is getting all that reward, and I am not, and I was actually a high-quality user. That's interesting, because that with the decentralized identity, you would kind of like make sure that, well, this cannot really happen that way, right?
Yeah, and I think it also helps to balance the scales a bit, because I think right now, especially in certain blockchains, you have these massive whales that control over 50% of the circulating supply. Yeah. And for projects, of course, you're going to try and find those people, but there's only so many. You know, there's a handful of those massive whales that control a lot of the Web3 ecosystem, but you have a ton of smaller users that are maybe logging in every day, they're making transactions every day, but you don't have any visibility on who those users are. And those users, yes, they're using your protocol, but they're not really loyal to it. If there's another protocol that's giving them better benefits or lower gas fees or whatever, they're going to jump ship. And so the challenge for a project is, how do we, continue to reach for those whales, but at the same time, not ignore the user base that is consistently there, but we have no idea who they are.
Right, which is an important topic for projects currently in Web3, where you are kind of fighting for users and trying to grow an ecosystem and all that. So definitely relevant for a range of projects in the space. So Litentry is on Polkadot, right? What is the reason behind that? Why Polkadot? What is special there? And why are you guys a parachain on Polkadot?
Yeah, so I think the decision to go on Polkadot came from our CEO, Hanwen, who was a very avid builder on the Polkadot ecosystem. And I think at the time in 2019, I think it was, of course, that was, at least in recent memory, crypto's golden years, where there was a lot of interest, there was a lot of investment dollars, and simply a lot of activity in the ecosystem. And so for us, it was a simple decision. You know, this is the one that we know. This is where we know we have builders that we can work with and that we can collaborate with. And from there, we've used essentially that Polkadot connection to leap into other blockchain ecosystems, because, again, we believe that decentralized identity won't matter unless it's multi-chain and chain agnostic, because as we've seen, everybody that has been in the space for longer than, a week will inevitably have a wallet on Ethereum. Maybe they'll have a Binance type wallet, maybe Polygon, etc. And so you don't want to alienate or deny the service to users that are using other blockchains. And what we wanted is really to have that holistic, aggregated view of identity, which is how we see, identity in real life, right? We own these different hats, these different masks, depending on whether we're in a professional situation, we're with friends, but they're all coming back down to the same person. So we're essentially extrapolating that approach to digital identity and hoping that it can also trickle down into Web2, where we do have some connections with, for example, you can connect your Twitter, you can connect your Discord, and we're looking to roll out other service providers as well.
Right. And are you looking to actively partner, integrate with projects on Polkadot, for example, as well, with other parachains? Because I feel like in terms of users, I think it's even more important now to ensure that you are aggregating high quality users now in the bear market, so to say, or there's less interest than like not real users.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we're actively looking within the Polkadot ecosystem as well as the Ethereum ecosystem, because one, we have connections in the Polkadot ecosystem. There's a lot of openness to work together within the Polkadot world. And at the same time, we want to start moving into the Ethereum ecosystem, because there's a lot more users just from volume standards. And the idea is that we can have this place where both sides can come together and that we can help feed the growth of both the Polkadot ecosystem as well as the Ethereum ecosystem.
Well, that makes sense. It's the multi-chain vision. So that's cool. And if someone goes now, on CoinGecko or like Googles your project and they see, okay, there's Litentry, there's also a Litentry token, right? What is sort of the use case of the Litentry token in all of this? How is it used?
Yeah, so with the tokenomics of the token right now, what we're exploring, and we haven't fully implemented because we're still kind of roughing out the kinks, are things like identity staking, which is this idea that users can put up a certain number of Litentry tokens to prove their humanity, because the idea is, again, to fight that level of bots swarming a platform. And so our thinking there is, if you have to put up a certain amount of lit tokens, and it doesn't have to be this astronomical amount, but just enough to deter people with bot accounts that want to prove humanity, then you start to create this idea where people are willing to pay to prove their humanity because they see that there's a value in that. And that comes from projects also valuing that. But I think it's kind of the chicken and the egg moment for that. So that's kind of where we're struggling with, because at the moment there isn't a focus in Web3 for humanity. It's more so, can we get higher numbers of users? Can we get the most wallets interacting with our protocol? And so that's kind of on the back burner. With the token itself, it'll essentially be used for transacting with projects that we're going to connect with. So if they want to have a profile on Identity Hub, there'll be a fee to pay essentially, and that fee will be paid in lit tokens to kind of stimulate the economy of that. And beyond that, we're looking at other innovations that's, I don't think I'm at liberty to say right now.
Okay. Yeah. That was interesting though, the chicken and egg problem, because there's also a conflict of interest there, because on one side, in the long term, a project wants to have high quality users, but you also, the more in the short term, the more you can say, look, these hundreds of thousands of people have been using our application, right? That also gets a bit of a marketing hype going or whatever. So there is a bit of a tension between these two things.
Yeah. And I think it'll be like that until maybe the next bull market, and then maybe the bear market after that, when there's more of a stabilization and maturity of the Web3 space, where we start to see, okay, yes, numbers are important, but what's behind those numbers, and are we going to start caring about that because we want to shed this idea that the Web3 space is full of scammers and bots and all these things. And one of the ways that we do that is by having these types of proof of humanity or identity. And I think right now in a bear market, nobody wants to reduce the number or the appearance of the users that they're actually attracting to their platform. So I think it's one of those ideas that we're going to continue to develop up until the time is right, and then hopefully we'll have some launch.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in terms of if someone wants to get involved now, with Litentry, maybe try it out or find out more about you guys, what can they do? And also, what's kind of next? What are you excited about coming up? Yeah.
So our next big release will be with the profiles feature. So having that projects being able to define what characteristics are important to them, and users being able to meet those characteristics and receive rewards for them. And if someone wants to get involved, they can join our Discord, our Telegram, our Twitter, or X, I guess. And through there, you also have the link to join the whitelist for the Identity Hub, so you can actually start to connect your profiles and see how that works with the Litentry score. And then once we have those projects onboarded, then you'll be able to interact with actual Web3 projects in the space.
All right. So this is gonna be rolled out, and people can get involved now to be kind of like whitelisted for this and start creating profiles. Is it?
Yeah, correct.
Right. Okay. Cool. Sweet. It's always kind of interesting to talk about something that's a growing field in the crypto ecosystem, and such as decentralized identities, and kind of like get an idea what projects like Litentry are working on currently and where the market's going. Thank you so much for telling us about it and sharing some insights to what you guys are doing and where your journey is going. Thank you for coming on the show. All the best to you. If there's anything else you want to share, you'll find links to the things we discussed in the show notes to all the viewers. And Perfect. I'll hand it off to you, Patrick, for last words if you have any.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you so much for this opportunity and for the great conversation. I hope whoever will be listening will have learned something, and hopefully this will start them on building their digital identity, and hopefully that'll be with Litentry.
Lovely. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.